Molybdenum is a metal whose name I have heard countless times over the years that I have been a blacksmith and a metal worker. It's a metal that's used in steel alloys, and looking up steel grades, you often see a certain percentage of that little MO, but I have never encountered it in its pure form. Today, I want to see what is molybdenum metal and what can you make from it. And that curiosity cost me $1,000, 777 pounds. This right here is a single crystal of pure molybdenum. Oh my goodness, it looks like a stack of coins. How funny is that? My first impressions, it feels much heavier than a bar of steel of equivalent diameter and length would be, and it feels a lot colder to the touch, which makes sense because molybdenum is 30% more dense than steel, and it's twice as good of a thermal conductor, which means it can move temperature around real good. Now this is a single crystal of molybdenum.
Why is it called a crystal? Does this like grow?
I think that is actually the best way of describing how it is that it's made. Because the advert where I bought this said it is zone refined molybdenum. And from what I can see online, it seems like that process involves having an induction coil that moves along, progressively melting and cooling it and pushing any impurities to one end. But we need to get into the meat and potatoes. Metals in my eyes are for making things from, so let's start having a play. Does it file? Oh yes, it does. Quite soft indeed. That means it should definitely, oh, interesting. How weird. I thought that was going to be perfectly fine with a hacksaw, but it's not. It's actually fairly hard. The file does a much better job. How does it grind? Oh, my back! Oh, I just twisted in a certain type of way. Ow!
Ooh, it heats up quick. That's hot already. That gets hot really quick.
It grinds even easier than steel. I want to take a Rockwell hardness reading of it. So for that, we need a slice of it.
See if these very fancy, expensive bandsaw blades make it through. Oh yeah, that's cutting nicely. No problems with the nice saw blade.
This is my hardness tester machine. There's a little diamond point there. This machine measures how deep it goes and gives us a reading.
Oh, that looks soft. It's still going.
Okay, it doesn't even read on the scale. So we're gonna measure it on a different hardness scale that's appropriate for a softer material. So the diamond point is for measuring Rockwell scale C. We're gonna take it out, swap it out for a little carbide ball for Rockwell B. So here we go. Rockwell hardness B, 83. Compare that, mild steel washer, 83.5. Wow, as hard as mild steel. Let's compare both of those to some copper sheet, 30. So molybdenum is as hard as mild steel in its current state. Now, molybdenum was first identified as an element by my Swedish cousin Carl Scheele in 1778. But because of its high melting point, a whopping 2,623 degrees Celsius, it only started seeing more widespread use in World War I.
Can we melt it? Damn, that heats up quick. That's crazy. Look how bright it is. Oh my Lord. That's wild. Oh, I think it's puddling. It's melting. No way. And oh my goodness, it's eating away at the fire brick.
That sucks. I'm not going to be able to get that piece back and make anything from it. It might be possible that we just melted the brick and didn't do anything to the molybdenum and it just sunk into the brick because the brick was so hot. And the molybdenum, actually, unfortunately, still looks the same size and shape it was. Bugger! Got to chip that out. Ow! That got me in the eye.
I got it out.
No way. Well, it definitely didn't turn into a puddle. We may have wetted it, but we definitely didn't melt it into a puddle. That puts into perspective how incredibly difficult it must have been to make anything from molybdenum. Because if these burly fire bricks give way before the molybdenum does, you're not left with a ton of very easy solutions. We definitely can't melt it, but what happens if we hammer on it cold? That's actually pretty soft. As you'd expect from something that has, oh, hello, it broke. So it deforms a little bit cold, but how about when it's hot? We definitely can't melt it, but can we get it hot enough to forge? What? Stop. Oh, that's awesome! It forges! Kind of, I think. Molybdenum forges! That's nuts! We've done so many of these experiments where the material doesn't forge that you heat it up, bloomin' white, screaming white hot, and it is soft under the hammer and it doesn't look like it cracked. In this corner right here, It looks like it's got a ton of stars, like snowflakes. That is absolutely epic looking. It's like, it's like a little mini Damascus pattern. Let's grind into it and see if it's still one piece. Unbelievable! Doesn't look like it has any cracks running through it. So now that we know that it forges, I've got another question, which is, will it forge well? Can we diffusion bond molybdenum to some other metals? And you know what that means? Titanium, copper, nickel. I want to stack them all up and I want to see if we can weld them into a very unique billet that may have never been made before. From bottom to top, it is titanium, copper, molybdenum, nickel, molybdenum, titanium, nickel, molybdenum, copper. That is a lot smaller than I imagined it would be.
That's what she said.
This is going to be our can.
But?
It needs to go in the lathe to be made. It needs what? The hole needs to be bigger. I'm going to get rid of that copper layer. I don't think we need it. That's the lid. I'm feeling like 850 Celsius. Turn her on. So it is sealed up with a pipe. The pipe has a hose that is connected to this bottle of argon. It's delivering about 1 liter per minute of flow through this, and by pushing that argon through the billet, thanks to that little teeny exit hole, we make sure that there is not going to be any oxygen in there, because argon is an inert gas. Oxygen is very inert. So I'm gonna chuck that in there. And I've decided that the tool du jour is the hydraulic press. This is a small enough billet that I think we can get enough pounds per square inch through those bonding interfaces so that if it can bond, it should.
It's been in there 10 minutes. It is go time in 3, 2, 1. All right, we can only hope it worked. We'll let it cool down and see.
We squish it down about 4 millimeters or so. Hopefully it's enough that whatever's in there is solid. Sounds solid. I think it's stuck! I don't think I was expecting that. I think that might be a solid piece. I did not expect that that was going to be possible. It looks like we've successfully stuck molybdenum to copper, we've successfully stuck molybdenum to nickel, and then to more molybdenum, and then directly to titanium. More nickel, more molybdenum. It's all one piece. And it's so cool to see that the molybdenum looks almost identical to how it looked before we squished it together, because it is so strong at such high temperatures, it barely deformed. The titanium, nickel, copper, all that stuff squished like nobody's business, but the molybdenum, it looks identical. And this is exactly why this became such an important alloying element in making steels in the early 1900s. All of our drill bits are made out of high-speed steel, even our big ones. Well, in the late 1800s, when they were trying to make a better steel for drill bits, for turning tools on the lathe, they needed an alloy that was going to withstand high temperatures. The very, very tip of one of these cutting tools, no matter how much you try to put coolant in there and cutting oil in there, it's gonna get hot. And a regular plain carbon steel starts to have its hardness dramatically reduced, even at pretty low temperatures. You start getting to 300 degrees Celsius. It's not like it was at room temperature, but the what is called red hardness and temperature resiliency of adding metals like tungsten and then molybdenum to the alloy helped make steels that could perform at high temperatures. And the reason molybdenum really started to come into its own in the First World War is because they had largely been using tungsten to serve that purpose in alloys, but most tungsten was coming from China, and the Americans, of course, wanted as much as possible an American supply chain. And as we can see in this awesome book, I highly recommend, the US had significant sources of molybdenum, and I find it interesting, but of course, very obvious that geopolitics and war plays a role in the development of our alloys, and as a result, plays a role 100 years later in the steels that we use in our drill bits and other cutting tools. This is not an alloy of steel and molybdenum. This is something incredibly different, and what I would like to do with something as unique as this is make some jewelry. Of course, this thing is perfectly suited to a one-of-a-kind ring.
We should see what the swarf looks like. Is the swarf still stuck together? Can we see the join in it? Can we see the copper? Dude, that's a bit of swarf that's half copper, half molybdenum. Oh my goodness, that's epic. That blows my mind. It's still stuck together at the interface of copper and molybdenum, and it's one piece. No! It broke! Oh, it bloody broke! I think that broke at the molybdenum titanium joint interface. Oh, that's a bummer. Oh, cutting forces were too much for it to stay in one piece. Switched over to a boring bar. I'm just spraying coolant absolutely everywhere, but not on the part. As it currently stands, I think this might finish up as about a little over a size 7. Let's take this puppy out. Almost done. What I would like to do though is I would like to heat it to see if we can bring some of the colors out of the titanium layer and to see what happens to the molybdenum. The potential risk is that heating it makes the layers that we've fabulously joined together pop apart. So with that broken section, we're going to test it. And also, I'm going to find out the coefficient of thermal expansion of molybdenum to see how close it is to our titanium and interlayers. These are the videos you need to watch if you want that to make sense. Coefficient of thermal expansion of molybdenum is crazy. You're not going to believe this. This is like back in the day when Jeremy Clarkson would announce the results of the lap times. Where does molybdenum stand? Where do you think, Jamie?
Right at the very top.
Good guess. 4.8! It has the lowest coefficient of thermal expansion of any other metal that we've played with in the workshop. That's nuts! Titanium, 8.8, steel, 11.7. So when we heat the molybdenum, it's barely going to expand relative to steel or titanium. So now we're going to heat up our scrap bit and see if it breaks apart. When you heat titanium, it forms a very thin oxide layer that refracts the light differently. Oh, that looks epic. Oh, the molybdenum goes dark. The titanium is purple. So that, I think, is what we're going to do to the ring. Lesson learned. Molybdenum goes dark at temperature. Titanium is going a nice straw. Oh, that looks cool. That is pretty freaking neat. Oh, I think that's it, boys and girls. Oh, and you see this strip of nickel between the two molybdenum layers? I love it. While Jamie was taking those pictures, I have been adding this for sale on my Squarespace website. Obviously, they're the sponsor of this episode, longtime sponsor of the channel, and a product that I've been using for, I'm old, over a decade. I love how this looks. The molybdenum has taken a smoky, hazy, light blue. It almost looks like some sort of stone. Meanwhile, the titanium and the nickel has a gorgeous, shiny straw color to it. I'm unbelievably happy with it, and I think I need to sell it. Putting a price on it. I've got to add some pictures. And this is why I love Squarespace, because it is that easy. That's now up for sale on my website. I've got no idea if molybdenum is a good ring material, but I do have a little bit of an idea of just how difficult running a business is, which is why it's important that your processes are as easy as possible and why I recommend Squarespace so much. Selling products, piece of cake. You can also sell digital ones, and you can market those products with Squarespace's email campaigns. You can sell your time with Squarespace scheduling. It integrates fabulously into your calendar and it'll help you avoid those dreaded double bookings. And best of all, you don't need any coding experience to make a beautiful website come to life for yourself, because they have countless drag and drop themes with no plugins, patches, or upgrades ever. And I especially love that you can buy your domain through Squarespace. And when you go to squarespace.com/forge, you're gonna get a 2-week free trial where you can try it out, see if you love it. And when you do, code FORGE at checkout will get you 10% off your purchase and lets them know that we sent you. Thank you so much for being here. It is an unbelievable treat to be able to play around with these materials, and that's not possible without your time. Thank you, bye-bye.